The UN Special Envoy Hans Grunberg concludes visit to Washington, D.C. Members of the U.S. Congress urge President Biden to redesignate Houthi militia as a terrorist group. Amid international calls for the need to de-escalate, Houthi militia continues mobilizing more fighters to war fronts. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. The UN Special Envoy for Yemen, Hans Grunberg, concluded yesterday a visit to New York and Washington, D.C. Grunberg met with members of the UN Security Council and the UN Secretary General to update them on his efforts for de-escalation and starting a multi-track political process. In Washington, D.C., Grunberg discussed recent developments in Yemen and the region with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and senior officials in the U.S. National Security Council, State Department, and the Department of Defense. Further, in his meetings with the U.S. officials, Grunberg discussed the recent wave of military escalation in Yemen and the region and ongoing efforts to reach a sustainable and peaceful resolution to the conflict. The consistent support of the Security Council, including the United States, is critical for boosting UN efforts to secure a negotiated, inclusive political settlement. Secretary General of the Arab League stated that Houthi militia poses a serious threat to regional security and sea lanes. His statement came after Houthi militia's attack on civilian targets in the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, and he further described the attack as a coward targeting. This came during his speech at the opening of the 32nd session of the Arab Interparliamentary Union, in which he said that the Arab world is going through a difficult historical stage of security challenges. Despite recent international calls for the need to de-escalate, Houthi militia seems to have taken for granted all those calls and started mobilizing their athletes to send them to war fronts. This proves again that this militia can never be of peace. The following report has more details on this.
Last Tuesday, the UN envoy to Yemen, Hans Grunberg, gave a new briefing to the Security Council, in which he reviewed his plans towards a comprehensive political settlement for peace in Yemen. Less than 24 hours later, the militia announced the launch of a campaign to mobilize the largest number of fighters to the battlefronts. The new campaign, according to the Houthi-controlled media outlets, will target all group segments, including children and marginalized people. The Houthi militia has also launched an incendiary mobilization initiative to force mothers and schoolgirls in Sana'a to attend courses that ensure indoctrination prior to recruitment. These campaigns, according to observers, would reduce the chances of the talks' success. The negotiations will be held next week, according to the UN envoy, to discuss the Houthis' complete rejection of the international community's call for peace. While a political resolution stalls in light of Houthi intransigence, violent battles erupt between the government forces and the Houthi militia. In Ma'rib, confrontations waged on the northwestern front, where the government's forces' artillery demolished the militia's reinforcements in the vicinity of the mass camp and made field progress on Al-Ayraf front. In Taiz, violent battles erupted between the government forces and the Houthi militia in Al-Ahtub area west of Taiz. Meanwhile, the military media announced that Houthis had been killed and wounded by artillery shelling of the joint forces and thwarted a Houthi attempt to spread in mountainous areas in Makbana west of Taiz. Houthi escalation and mobilization, according to observers, reflect the Houthi militia's insistence on prolonging the war. The only way to end the Houthis' malignance is by defeating them in combat, leaving them no choice but to negotiate. Will the national forces be able to purify the areas under the control of the Iranian-backed militia, or will they succumb under pressure?
The Security Council members, during their last session on Yemen, have urged the warring parties to de-escalate and support the UN efforts to bring an end to the conflict in Yemen. However, the Houthi militia reacted to that by more military activities on the ground. One example of that is pressuring parents to allow their sons to join their war. More details on this are within this report.
Houthi militia is resuming the brainwashing policy among Yemeni citizens. However, this time they target mothers of students in Sana'a. Mothers of male and female school students were forced to attend Houthi courses which were held for the purpose of mobilization and brainwashing, in which these courses will represent a direct cause of brainwashing for the young students. The militia formed special committees in all directorates, in educational offices and schools. They further organized lectures and places for the targeted moms, according to some sources. The content of the lessons and lectures that are given to the mothers shows the false promotion presented by the Houthi militia, in order to increase societal division and to spread extreme ideas among these mothers who lack access to information and social awareness. According to sources, Houthi Zainabiyat lectures are trying to falsify a number of hadith incompatible with the Holy Quran, which presents an indication of the danger that Houthi courses have posed to society in the capital Sana'a. The militia takes advantage of the courses held in schools by carrying out protest stops to support the missile force, which the militia shoots on civilians and displaced people in various governorates and neighboring countries. Female students further expressed their dissatisfaction with the pause, in which they were forced to chant Houthi slogans, but many of them refused to continue, which exposed them to beatings and insulting. This movement of chaos has led to students crying and beating, which forced the school administration to intervene and end the pause.
Republican and Democratic senators have urged U.S. President Joe Biden to reclassify the Houthis as a terrorist group. 17 members of Congress from both parties wrote to President Biden asking for a reclassification of the Houthi militia. In addition, Democrats and Senate Foreign Relations Committee have expressed concern about the Houthis' escalating fierce behaviors. According to the American Foundation for Defense of Democracy, the U.S. administration is now internally discussing whether to return the Houthis to the terroristic list. Armed elements of Islah Party forces organized looting on businessmen and shop owners, with a direct support from the leaders of Tai's military axis. According to the reports, the Brotherhood's Axis leadership levies expanded to include about 30 checkpoints, extending along the line linking the Turaba Directorate and the city of Taiz. They imposed taxes in a result forced businessmen and shop owners to add levies and costs of transporting goods through these areas. Although people in Houthi-controlled areas are suffering terrible hard living conditions, Houthi militia seems determined to add their troubles by asking them to pay levies, which they cannot afford. The following report has more details.
The charges imposed by the Houthi militia have added burdens to citizens whose living conditions have worsened, and poverty and starvation rates have increased among them. Local sources stated that the Houthi militia doubled the charges imposed on merchants, entrepreneurs, and citizens in general, and significantly increased the prices of fuel and cooking gas, and on all goods arrived from ports under the control of the government. According to the sources, the Houthi militia has also raised the rent of endowment properties, with the confiscation of the salaries of hundreds of thousands of employees for the 5th year in a row, and directing all state revenues to serve the militia leaders and fighters. In addition, the militias raised the value of the tax as well as comprehensively raising the custom price on imports coming from ports controlled by the government because shipping companies refused to operate shipping lines to the ports of Hodeidah under the control of the Houthi rebels. On the fuel and household gas side, Houthi militia have a monopoly of selling gas cylinders in neighborhoods at the official price of 5,000 riyals, but many families wait for 2 months to get a cylinder, while they are sold on the black market for about 15,000 riyals. These practices deepen the suffering of the population in the areas controlled by the Houthis, as more than 50% of the population of Yemen is food insecure, including about 47,000 people living in famine-like conditions, and limited access to food is aggravated by several factors, including the ongoing conflict, low income impacts, and depreciation of the national currency, large family size, high unemployment rates, and non-payment of salaries for many civil servants.
3 students were injured by the remnants of a shell planted by the Houthi militia in Harib district south of Ma'rib. Local sources stated that an explosive remnant of the Houthi militia detonated 3 students while they were returning from El Wahda school in the isolation of Jarada north of Harib. The sources confirmed that the students were transferred to El Atir hospital in Jarada before they were treated at Bayhan and Atak hospitals in Shabwa due to the seriousness of their cases. Government forces announced the downing of 2 Houthi militia aircraft and the recovery of various weapons in Hajjah. The media center of the 5th Military Region stated that the air defenses of the government forces managed to shoot down 2 Houthi militia drones west of Harad district. Meanwhile, the coalition fighters carried out air raids targeting gatherings of the Houthi militia in the districts of Harad and Abs, causing heavy losses among them. According to a field source, the raids resulted in the killing of about 30 Houthi militants and the destruction of military equipment. The coalition announced that it had carried out 18 targeting operations against the Houthi militia. The operations resulted in the destruction of 13 military vehicles and human losses in the ranks of the Houthi militia. These operations have also led to destroying a Houthi boat in the south of the Red Sea. The coalition added that these operations have led to infliction of casualties only among the militia members. A medical committee announced the suspension of treatment of 4 wounded people in Egypt because of the repeated delay in disbursing medicines. This delay has forced the committee to stop operations and treatments for those people outside Yemen, which led to great losses. The committee stressed that it had to close the file of treating the wounded due to the continuous delay, and it was forced to return patients to their homeland without completing treatment. As a result, the committee called on the concerned authorities to give the issue of the wounded special attention and to speed up permanent work for this crisis. Coming next. Already crushed by hard living conditions, Yemenis strive to secure domestic gas due to severe shortages.
راتب الواحد 120 ألف والكيس الدقيق ب18,000 والكيس السكر اليوم ب20,000. كم يعني بيعطي هذا الراتب كامل كيس سكر وكيس دقيق؟
المواطن اليمني يعيش في أزمة إنسانية وغذائية مؤلمة من غلاء الأسعار وفحشة الأسعار وغلاء الصرف والعملة الأجنبية في البلد.
حالتي الحين حالة لما أخرج لما ندير 12 كيلو ما نقدرش ناكل الأكل داخل ما إحنا بحاجة صعبة.
Welcome back. The domestic gas crisis is getting worse in the capital Sana'a and areas under the control of the Houthi militia, despite the daily flow of gas tankers from Ma'rib. Citizens said that the gas crisis is double day after day, amid the rise of the black market that sells cylinders for more than 15,000 riyals. Citizens added that they face difficulty in obtaining the cylinder at a price of 4,500 riyals due to its scarcity at official gas stations. The domestic gas crisis has doubled the suffering of citizens, and queues have become a daily routine of Yemenis' lives in the hope of obtaining a cylinder. Yemenis since 2014 have been suffering greatly in all aspects of life. What adds to their deplorable situation is a stifling domestic gas crisis that has stricken the country nationwide. More details on this are in the following report.
The ongoing conflict in Yemen has resulted in the prolonged crises in the provision of public services to multiple sectors across the country. In the capital Aden, there is a stifling crisis in the matter of domestic gas.
It's a real domestic gas crisis. I have stood in line from 5 morning till 3:30 afternoon. Only at that time I managed to have 1 cylinder. The government should take immediate actions to solve this problem. You would be shocked to see long queues of citizens from dawn till afternoon. It's really terrible.
Amid the neglect from the Yemen Gas Company and the local authorities, the governorate was unable to meet the supply of LPG, at times with less than half of the demand. This caused the appearance of the black market. It also led to an increase in prices, which sometimes amount to double what the official gas distributors charge. This happened especially after the closure of the private stations in the city. And although the local authorities and government agencies made attempts to elevate the problem, they all failed.
We are really suffering from this gas problem. We try to provide gas sometimes from the black market, and sometimes we urgently need it. We go to private stations to take from there. This is really expensive, as it costs from 15 and 16,000 beside the transportation fees. We bus drivers can't find gas. This is unfair. We've family to take care of. We have to travel long distances just to get gas and stay in long lines, which wastes our whole day.
The ongoing gas crisis has had a significant political, social, economic, health, and environmental impacts on all segments, particularly on the poorest and most vulnerable. Therefore, this crisis must be addressed urgently. Yemen has been witnessing for nearly 7 years a continuous war. People suffer from all different sides, yet no actions are taken to help end the war.
Government forces initiated new steps to enhance the value of the Yemeni rial against foreign currencies during the next few days. The sources stated that the government's efforts are directed to resume production and the export of Yemeni oil from the governorates of Ma'rib and Shabwa. The sources considered that this would enhance the value of the Yemeni rial against foreign currencies in the next stage and stop the speculation in the currency. Houthi militia continues concealment of hundreds of fuel tankers coming from Ma'rib and Hadramaut in the city of Al-Hazm. The militia refuses to allow more than 600 tankers loaded with gasoline to cross the city of Al-Hazm towards Sana'a. The sources confirmed that the crisis came because of the unprecedented spread of black market, in which oil derivatives are available in these markets with huge quantities. Abyan Governorate has witnessed fuel shortages for the past weeks. This crisis has overshadowed daily lives of citizens. Most stores have closed and big malls as well. People keep urging the government to take actions as to help solve this problem, but nothing is happening. The following report has more details.
Petrol and oil derivative fuel stations in the city of Zanzibar, at the center of Abyan Governorate, are witnessing a severe crisis. While black markets flourish, selling the priced commodity at exorbitant prices exceeding the purchasing power of citizens.
I'm a citizen in Abyan Governorate. We are suffering from derivatives crisis, particularly petrol. We are known as an oil country. We never import oil. How we are in such a deficit that a gallon could amount to about 25,000 here and about 10,000 in Houthi-controlled areas.
Citizens and owners of vehicles and motorcycles have complained about the complete shortage in oil derivatives. Transit was halted because of the egregious fare between the governorate cities, a consequence of authorities' negligence to remedy the successive crises the country is witnessing.
A small bottle like this one amounts to about 2,500 rial. Back then, we could have filled an entire car tank with some price. The government and local authorities have abandoned us in favor of financial gain. We need basic solutions for our crises.
Black market oil sellers seem to conduct their business in broad daylight in front of local authority offices in the city.
Oil derivatives in Abyan are incredibly expensive. A gallon costs 24,000 rial, even though the same gallon costs 19 in Aden. So it's a bit expensive here due to the presence of the black market. We call on the government to provide gasoline and petrol and keep monitoring station owners, because this situation aggravates the suffering of people.
This begs the question of how oil derivatives are absent at stations when they're brimming on the black market. The answer might lie in the failure of government institutions, especially the regulatory authorities on oil derivatives, to fulfill their duties.
The National Committee Against Coronavirus recorded no new cases of the pandemic. Committee officials said that 5 death cases were recorded. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 11,731, including 2,120 deaths and 8,555 cases of recovery. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The UN Special Envoy Hans Grunberg concludes visit to Washington, D.C. Members of the U.S. Congress urge President Biden to redesignate Houthi militia as a terrorist group. Amid international calls for the need to de-escalate, Houthi militia continues to mobilize more fighters to war fronts. This is the end of the news. For more, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Yemen Today English. This is Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.